Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. We're back. So I'm still recovering from whatever the hell I had. But it's getting a little better, or it's actually a lot better. And I just have the little remaining bit of coughing fits to go through. So hopefully I don't have any of those today. We'll see what happens. But anyway, we do have a great show for you guys today. I do want to talk a little bit about the Bernie Sanders town hall that happened last night. I did not get to watch it. I was doing some local politics around here. So I was at a meet and greet with a prospective governor for Michigan. That's Abdul Al-Said. So I filmed the whole thing, and of course, I can't get it off my phone. I've tried, okay, let's upload it to YouTube. Oh, no, it's too big. Can't do that. Let's upload it to Facebook. Nothing happens. Let's try to drag and drop it from my phone to my computer so I can edit it so then I can put it online. Nope, not going to allow you to do that either. Technology. What the hell? But, so unfortunately, until I can figure out how to get that off my phone, I will not be able to put that up, because that sucks, because it was actually really fascinating. There's even a pro-Second Amendment guy that was at the meet and greet, and he was shut down. It was awesome. But anyway, so I had some fun on that one, but that's why I missed the Bernie Sanders town hall. I'm going to have to catch up on that. But I do have some fun numbers on the town hall, which is great. Then, of course, we got some politics. We'll get into the ACA fix, working its way through Congress. Here we go again. It begins. We got more of the budget stuff, including an update on the Dreamers. Are the Democrats going to fight for the Dreamers? I think you already know the answer. Then we have Cambridge Analytica. Michigan Attorney General's race. That's also fascinating. Then we've got a rich person who's afraid that the poor is going to rise up against him. This is great. And then finally, did millennials kill Toys R Us? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That should be fun. Okay. That said, earlier today there was a shooting. School shooting that happened in Maryland. Of course, I'm not going to be like Republicans and be like, oh, let me send my sincerest thoughts and prayers. No, I'm not going to do that. Thankfully, I'm going to say thankfully that there's nobody killed, although 2 people were critically injured. And the gunman was killed. Now, it's important to note that the gunman did not have an AR-15 or any sort of semi-automatic rifle. That seems to be very popular. I was going to say assault rifle, but then the ghost of Tommy Loren will pop up and scream, "It's an Armalite rifle, you libtard!" So, I want to avoid that. I want to avoid summoning the she-devil into the program. Apparently that's a thing. So, no, the person was apparently armed with a pistol, I believe, and was subdued by the school resource officer. So the gunman in that instance is now dead. That's what we know about Maryland. So anyway, to the survivors, the victims, of course, we're going to do something about it. As a nation, we're going to do something about it. All right. Anyway, let me get into the show here. Before I do so, please, everyone give us a like and a share. That's one of the best ways that you can help us right now. Since YouTube has got the algorithm all basically jury-rigged against independent media, so that's why we don't get a lot of views anymore. That's why we don't have a lot of revenue anymore. So please share. Sharing is caring is the best thing you can do. Second best, of course, going in and becoming a patron or doing the super chat, which I see I've already gotten one. So thank you, Platypie. By the way, she suggests giving Dropbox a shot. Yeah, it. Look, again, here we go again. I'm sneezing, or I'm coughing. I was doing sneezing earlier too. All that congestion's got to have a place to go. Anyway, it's basically moving it from my phone. I tried a direct cable route, and the video, it's on my phone, but it's not on my phone. I can't literally find it, but I'll have to worry about that later. That said, let's jump into the stories, all right? Oh, there we go. Okay. So last night, there was a town hall by a possibly a little-known senator, or you may have heard of him, Senator Bernie Sanders. This town hall was on income inequality. So now that's a fairly important subject. It's something that we don't see on corporate media a lot. In fact, they don't really talk about it. Maybe it's because this is an unpopular topic. Doesn't get a lot of headlines, doesn't get a lot of press. The fact that the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and there is just this gigantic rift between the haves and the have-nots. Well, judging on the numbers that the event drew last night, you can pretty much say that no, it's not an unpopular subject to talk about. In fact, it's a very important subject to talk about because it received about 1.7 million live viewers. Damn. Now, Huffington Post reports that the panel discussion event called Inequality in America, the Rise of Oligarchy and Collapse of the Middle Class, exceeded the viewership of Sanders' first live town hall on single-payer healthcare in January. That got about 1.1 million live viewers. Now, what's very, very interesting about this is that this wasn't on like CNN. This wasn't on MSNBC. This wasn't on any of the large cable networks. This was strictly online. In fact, they partnered with the Guardian, our affiliate, the Young Turks, Now This, and Act TV to get together and basically broadcast this very, very important discussion. Now, this means that there are not a lot of regular moderators. It's not like in a debate fashion. No, this is basically an event where he brought in people, experts, to go and talk about the effects of income inequality in America, which is awesome. Now, in fact, they had three co-hosts. You had Elizabeth Warren, Derek Hamilton, and filmmaker Michael Moore. Now, according to the Post, together they interviewed three guests with specialized knowledge of the economic and political structures suppressing economic mobility and funneling wealth upward. Catherine Coleman Flowers, founder of the Anti-Poverty Alabama Center for Rural Enterprise Community Development Corporation, that's a long title, spoke about the destitute poverty of the rural black community in Alabama. Now, in this specific place in Alabama, there was people that are exposed to untreated sewage. That's horrible. That's like something that you would think of a third world country, but no, that's happening in Alabama. And it's happening, of course, to the African-American community. But wait a minute, I thought us Sanders bros didn't care about black people. No, we actually do care quite a bit what happens. And look, this economic inequality, of course, coupled with institutional racism, it creates situations like that. So it's great that they had that person come on and talk about it. Now, there's another person who represented labor. Now, this is Cindy Estrada, vice president of the UAW. Now, she talked about organized labor in their effect in raising living standards, and how, of course, the decline of labor has lowered living standards. And look, I have my own experience with working in unions. I've worked in a union shop. I've worked in non-union shops. Guess which one's better? Guess which one actually paid people better? Obviously, it's the union shop. Now, they also had Gordon Laffer, political scientist from the University of Oregon, and he talked about corporate interests and how those interests neutralize public opposition through campaign donations and lobbying. So that's what they talked about. And look, 1.7 million people, and that's not including the 450 people that were actually in the town hall in person, plus the 100 in the overflow room that viewed this event. 1.7. So let me give you some comparisons of how other networks, as I said before, this was not on CNN. This was not on MSNBC. So how did CNN do? They got about 966,000 viewers on average last night. Throughout that time, when the town hall was taking place. Sad. 966,000 viewers. And look, of course, you had other cable news outlets doing a little bit better. You had Fox News and MSNBC drawing about 2.7 to 2.4 million, respectively. But that's, of course, look, these are gigantic companies. Fox News, MSNBC, of course, they're usually that's what they usually draw per night. But now you have these upstart people on the internet. It wasn't too long ago, and look, there is still that dismissive attitude. But they look at online outlets. They look at people doing online town halls and things like that, and like, you're never going to get any viewers. No, nobody cares. The future is cable news. No, it's not. These, again, relatively small networks compared to, of course, cable news. It gets billions of dollars. These are billion-dollar corporations versus, Act Now, Now This, Act TV. These are small internet companies. The Young Turks is a small internet company. And here they're getting 1.7 million live viewers. Almost catching up. In fact, look, online news, it's coming. It's coming to take over. I mean, deny it at your peril. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, cable news in general. But, as I said, younger people. Look, the average demographic age of people watching those cable news channels anyway is 60 plus, at least. Fox News is somewhere around like 79. And even MSNBC is 65. So you've got a lot of old people watching traditional news. Whereas you've got a lot of younger people that are saying, I've had it with cable news. I've had it with cable television. They're not giving us the whole truth, or they're not giving us a real perspective. They're just doing standard establishment talking points. And we're tired of that. We actually want to hear what you guys think about the news. I know, news people having an opinion, it was unheard of back in the day. It's still unheard of when it comes to cable news. So, but I tell you, cable news, their days are coming. and more town halls and things like this, this is the way to do it. Okay. Let's get into some policy. Nope, that's not it. Yeah, that's it. Excuse me. Okay. So currently, Congress is working on this massive omnibus bill, right? So what they're going to do is that they're going to try to pass a spending bill fairly soon, and they have to, or else the government's going to run out of money. We're going to have another government shutdown. Now, of course, Republicans and Democrats, they desperately want to avoid a shutdown, mostly because of their donors, but also it looks bad really politically, and Americans generally don't like their government shut down. So they're working on this piece of legislation. And of course, there are numerous factions that are trying to put in their own policy riders into this. Now, one of them was a fix for the ACA. So, look, the ACA is kind of broken. Of course, there have been changes by the Trump administration as well to try and further break it so they can say, oh, look at that. The ACA is completely 100% failed. We need to repeal it. We need to get rid of it. Because that, of course, is a gigantic dream for the lobbyists because it equals a tax cut. Anyway, now, as I said, one of these riders would have been a way to fix the ACA. Now, that's what the Democrats want. The Democrats want to fix the ACA, but the Republicans, in return, what they want to do, and they put in their own rider for this, is to expand the Hyde Amendment. Now, according to HuffPost, Republicans want to push a bunch of riders, including one that would expand the Hyde Amendment and apply it to ACA money. Now, the two kinds of payments that make up that money are basically cost-sharing reductions. Now, this would reimburse insurers for discounts to low-income enrollees and also reinsurance. Now, reinsurance covers the cost of some especially sick enrollees, and both payments, of course, taken together, are basically aimed at trying to lower premiums. Now, premiums, look, continue to go up, of course, and that was the whole problem with the ACA to begin with. Premiums were always going to rise. Now, the bonus of the ACA is they rose at at a much lower percentage rate than they were before, but they are still rising nonetheless. So they try to put this, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take taxpayer money, and we're going to go and try to pay a larger share of that so you don't get hit as hard by those premium increases. Again, I think that's a Band-Aid. What we need is a single-payer Medicare for all, which we can negotiate with the drug companies and hospitals and things like that to keep costs under control. Because you remember, these are private health insurance corporations, and they raise their premiums so they can get more of a profit. Now, the Republicans have decided that since they're not going to get their policy rider, the Hyde Amendment expansion, that they're just going to shut the whole thing down. So the House has just reported that it is taking away their support for an Obamacare fix. They're not going to support it if they don't get support for their piece of legislation. In fact, multiple GOP lawmakers leaving a conference meeting held on Monday evening to discuss the omnibus funding bill said that those payments will not be included in a final bill, in large part because of a dispute with Democrats over abortion restrictions. Now, Republicans need Democratic votes in order to pass this. So with firm Democratic opposition, and it is a surprise to actually use that language because Democrats are hardly firm in anything, but with firm Democratic opposition to the abortion restriction on the Obamacare funds, the provisions were dropped. So, oh, hey, look, you want to help poor people afford their insurance premiums, or people who are really, really sick? Well, just give us this draconian anti-abortion provision and we can call it a deal. Is it a deal? No? Okay, then. Well, here would be my deal. Go fuck yourself. Look, you need Democrats to vote for this spending bill to continue funding the government. So who's the party that's in power right now? Oh, that would be the Republicans. If the Democrats shut down the government over trying to fund sick people's health care and poor people's health care, look, that would look really bad on the Republicans. Because what they're trying to do is they're just trying to shoehorn this anti-choice piece of legislation. Again, the Democrats have amazing leverage here. And what are they doing? Well, they're not using it. Of course they're not using it. And look, apparently, this doesn't seem to be a Democratic priority. Strangely enough. But, look, while the Democrats do care about this, at least some do, there are also Republicans that care about this as well. Now, look, Suzanne Collins, for example. Suzanne Collins, she got support for these provisions, right, from Mitch McConnell. Now, Mitch McConnell said, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to vote for our tax cut bill, and in return, what we're going to do in the Senate here is we're going to support these Obamacare fixed payments, because we know that's important for people in Maine. Well, it looks like, as I said, House Republicans are dropping this, and if House Republicans are dropping it, then the Senate Republicans aren't going to have really much of an impetus to pick it up. So, now she, along with Lamar Alexander, pushed hard for the payments to be included. However, the abortion issue proved to be too high an obstacle. Sad. But what do you expect from Republicans? Again, Mitch McConnell made the deal. Paul Ryan made no such deal. Just like the same on the Dreamers. And I'll get to those, I'll get to that issue in a minute. But look, again, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, they're not to be trusted, even if you were a fellow Republican. Because it turns out he and the rest of the party just served the donors and nothing else. Now, Collins, look, the reason that she's doing this is she realizes that she is vulnerable and actually needs her voters. And her voters, at least most of them, are not people who are like, yeah, fuck poor people. Let's go after the most vulnerable. Let's punish them for not being rich enough. No. Look, if Suzanne Collins presides over an enormous insurance rate increase for some of these very vulnerable people because of a fringe issue, most of her voters are going to be pissed. Again, as long as you're not part of that hardcore Republican base that says fuck poor people, which again is sadly a lot of what some Republican politicians represent. Case in point. And this is talking about the representatives. Some Republican representatives erupted into cheers and applause when GOP leaders announced that they would hold the line when it comes to insisting Hyde language be attached to any new Obamacare payments, according to a person in the room. Because fuck poor people who either need help with their premiums or to get an abortion with their private health insurance money that they pay into every month. This right here shows Republican hypocrisy and Republican priorities. They do not care. Okay. That's the Republicans. Let's go after the Democrats. Now, for months and months that we were told that the Democrats are going to fight for the Dreamers. They're going to fight for the Dreamers. They're on the side of the Dreamers. Man, we're really going to hold the line. We're going to fight. We're going to make sure that these people who were brought here through no fault of their own, when they were when they were kids, When they didn't have a choice, they created a life here. They got an education. They got jobs. Some created businesses. We were told that the Democrats were going to fight for them. In fact, I mean, look, Senate Democrats made a deal with the Republicans, with Mitch McConnell, and Mitch McConnell says, "Oh yeah, don't worry, we'll make sure to give them a vote." Well, did that happen? No, of course not. Never ever trust Mitch McConnell, ever. But beyond that, well, look, we've got a big fight when it comes to the budget coming up very, very soon on the 23rd. The government runs out of money. So they've got to get a spending bill passed, and they got to get it passed soon. And they've been working on something called an omnibus. This is a huge, huge government spending piece of legislation. It must pass, or again, we're going to have a government shutdown. Now, look, the Democrats, again, they said, we're going to have this be an issue. In fact, we might actually tie it to the spending bill. Well, guess what happened? The Democrats just did what they do best. They folded. According to The Hill, Democratic leaders have announced that they are backing off their demand that Dreamer protections be a part of the 2018 budget negotiations. Of course they did. I haven't seen a thing that Democrats haven't backed off from in this administration. This is amazing. Now, Nancy Pelosi has signaled that she will not hold a line for Dreamers heading into next week's expected vote on the omnibus spending bill. Instead, Democratic leaders want appropriations in both parties to drop all contentious riders for the sake of easing passage of the omnibus and preventing a government shutdown ahead of March 23rd when funding expires. Now, I'm going to tell you the reason about this, why they're doing this. But first, I want to quote here from Democratic Whip Representative Steny Hoyer, who's such a great lion of progressive values. He says, quote, "I think that's probably the best policy for us to do, to try to convince Republicans to drop all their riders. Good luck getting them to drop the abortion rider, which is what they can't wait to get passed. That would be a restriction of the Hyde Amendment, which, by the way, they're also using to hold up Obamacare payments for people who are really sick or low income. Yeah, fuck poor people. And also fuck the Dreamers." That's what the Republicans are saying. And the Democrats are saying that too. Like, we didn't really care about that issue to begin with. He says, Steny Hoyer continues, "It's also politically the most feasible way to get an omnibus passed." So let me tell you the real reason why the Democrats gave up on this. And they decided to try to urge them to do it without riders. Wall Street. Look, the donor class would be impacted greatly by a shutdown. I mean, just the threat it is enough to send the market into a tailspin. Oh, no, the donors, we can't have them lose money. The markets, what about the markets? Whatever you do, do not disturb the markets. So let's get this passed immediately. We'll drop everything. We won't demand anything. No help for the Dreamers, no Obamacare payments, nothing. No. Let's just get this passed. Get this passed. You want an anti-abortion rider? Well, we'll have to think about that. But most likely, we're probably going to fold on something. They have the leverage. They've got leverage. But look, Hoyer's actually going to address that. Hoyer suggested the Democrats' most effective tool in moving the Republicans to act on DACA is not withholding omnibus votes, but rousing pressure from the public. So wait, instead of using your leverage that you have politically, and again, part of that leverage does come from, actually, a lot of that leverage comes from popular support. And look, 87% of people polled say, yes, we support DACA. There's your leverage. And then you could say, look, I'm being backed by the American people. The American people say, let's do something about DACA. So let's do something about DACA. Again, you promised us a vote. We haven't had that happen yet, so we can't take you at your word. So guess what? We're going to call your bluff. Hey, we're willing to shut down the government in order to get something that we want. We don't want to have to do it, but that's on you. Give us what we want and give the American people what they want, and we'll let it go. We'll fund the government. But look, the Democrats, do you think they have a spine enough to do that? No, they don't have enough. They don't have a spine. Again, they just rolled over. They didn't even have a chance to call bluff. I mean, look, they had aces, right? Look, I don't play cards. Okay, so maybe this will be a bad analogy, but you got a winning hand sitting right there, and the Democrats are like, man, I could totally win this game right now. Fold. I fold. Take all my chips. Take them all. God, they're so weak. They're so weak. But look, this is Hoyer saying also, hey man, it's not my job. It's your job as the American people. No, you're our representative. You're supposed to represent us. And look, he should use his amazing leverage on this issue to force a vote. But again, they're not going to. And going back to that promise made by Mitch McConnell, you think Paul Ryan or Mitch McConnell are going to bring this up for a vote? This is Lucy with the football. God, these Democrats are terrible. They're the worst. And you know why? It's because they're paid to lose. And this is the difference between Democrats and Republicans, by the way. And not just talking about policy here, but I'm talking about how they play politics. Because politics is also pretty important. Republicans are strong. They're strong in the issues. All throughout the Obama administration, when they held the minority of seats, they're like, hey, you know what? Fuck you. We want this now. And guess what? The Democrats would often give them their way. I don't know why. But look, they were strong. The Democrats are incredibly weak. Now, look, there's a couple of reasons why the Republicans are strong. For one, they actually do primaries. I know. That's the thought of doing primaries on the Democratic side, I mean, gets people so riled up. Like, oh my God, how dare you do a primary? You're going to make me waste my campaign donations. You're going to make me waste my money on running a primary. How dare you guys? Why don't you just support the incumbent? Why don't you be a good little Democrat and vote for us? Whereas, look, Republicans are like, oh yeah, I don't think you're conservative enough. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to replace your ass. And you know what? It actually does work. Now, maybe there's a bad effect on it because it's made conservatives that much more worse. But that is a relative term. Again, you've got so many different people that are... you've got so many different politicians that are paid to... Look, they're paid to lose, man. The Democrats are. And look, the Democrats get paid to lose. The Republicans get paid to actually win. And so, look, when you run a primary against, I guess, a weaker conservative, if you're on the Republican side, and you get, you make your case to the base, the chances are you might actually win. Now, I got a great example. There's Dave Brock, right? Dave Brock ran against the banks. Turns out the banks are really unpopular on the Republican side as well. They're also really unpopular among the Democratic base. So a lot of people are very, very angry at the banks, especially since, I don't know, they crashed the economy. So, look, you got this Republican that ran against the corruption, ran against the banks, and took down Eric Cantor, who was a leader in the Republican Party. Why can't we do that on the Democratic side? Now, speaking of, look, the Democrats, yes, they're paid to lose, but they're paid to lose against Republicans. And that's also a big difference here. Because you see incredibly strong, vicious attacks from Democrats when they're in primaries against progressives. And we've done stories about how the establishment politicians, they pull no punches. They definitely do vicious smears against progressives because they're strong against progressives. They don't want progressives to win and to run against the Republicans. But when they run against Republicans, they're super weak. And again, they're paid to lose to Republicans, but they're paid to win against progressives. So that's one of the huge problems. So, but the Democrats, as I said, they're paid to be weak against the Republicans, and the donor class goes in there and they pick and choose, and they throw their money behind the most spineless Democrat. And then, look, the message around that too is, hey, no, we picked this guy. He's a moderate. He's going to work with Republicans. We're going to do rare bipartisanship. You can't choose the more partisan, more progressive candidate in this race. No. You have to pick the reasonable one because he's the only one that can win. Not necessarily, man. But look, these are the kinds of Democrats that you get. And these are the people. And look, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the leadership. Our leadership, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein, do you think she actually represents her district? The actual values of her district? Absolutely not. She's incredibly conservative. She votes with Trump 31% of the time. She's ancient. And look, the reason that she's there is that she raises lots and lots of money from corporations. And she's a fundraising superstar, but she hasn't really done anything else. That's the kind of leadership that you get when you have Democrats that are paid to lose. And look, Pelosi, for her part, she actually does. I actually do have a quote here from her. She said, "quote There's not a whole lot of reason to negotiate, to do anything that is not already covered by the court decision." And so she's talking about the recent court decision that let the Dreamers stay here for a certain amount of time. It gave them basically an extension on how long they could stay. But that's not a solution. We actually have to have a legislative solution. Now, on the omnibus, and why Pelosi is not choosing to fight, she says, "It is necessary for us to pass the omnibus to defend our country, to invest in our children's future, to keep America number one in every respect, to do so in a way that creates jobs." Number one? Wait, where are we number one? I don't understand. Like, is there any good metric that we are number one in at this point? No. Defend our country. Defend our country from what? The military always gets funded. No, I don't mean the troops. But usually the defense contractors always get their cut. They always get their pay. And that's, of course, while they ask the soldiers to go without pay and without good equipment. I know how this thing works. And again, not defending our country. We're giving weapons and money to Saudi Arabia to go and bomb innocent people in Yemen. We're in a bunch of different countries. And we're doing bombs, and that's not keeping us safe. That's actually worse. And as far as children's future, again, we're not really doing a whole lot in that respect. So I guess this sounds like to me a Republican talking point. And a reason not to fight. But we should fight. This is why we need real progressives. We need real progressives who are actually going to fight on real issues. So it's just another reason to get rid of Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein and actually replace them with people who are actually going to do the job of representing the people and their best interests. Because right now, we have a Democratic Party that sadly does not. All right. I am going to take a quick break here. We'll be back. We got plenty more stories, so stick right here around the nation. Be right back. Welcome back to the show. Around the nation, right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. I want to read a couple of super chats here. One's from Platypie. Get well soon. Thank you. I appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. One thing I've noticed getting a little bit older is that sickness seems to last a little bit longer. Much more longer than necessary. And finally, what do you mean, writes in a super chat, jelly democratic fish are paid to lose. Absolutely. So that's what we have. Okay, let's move on. Cambridge Analytica. A local news station has uncovered video of Cambridge Analytica employees talking about how they've been using less than savory methods to influence elections and politicians. Now, this video, again, this is a local news channel. I can't show you the video because it's local news, because of copyright issues, but I do want to read some of it to you. Now, for those who are unfamiliar, Cambridge Analytica is that big firm that is in a little bit of trouble for basically going in and illegally taking information of 50 million Facebook accounts and creating psychological profiles. So basically, the gist of what they did is they were able to go through and they lied to Facebook and said, oh, no, we're just doing research. So we're going to go in, we're going to take some of these voluntary, because some people voluntarily signed up to do a psychological profile. But some of the people who did not sign up for that were these people's friends and family members who also had their information taken by Cambridge Analytica. And so they used all this information to create these psychological profiles of potential voters and gave that information to the Trump campaign. They used it to try and basically get people to get targeted by ads and things like that to make them more likely to vote for President Trump. Interesting. Now, what impact did it have? Well, I mean, you could look and say, well, Donald Trump's president, so obviously it seemed to have some sort of impact. But I think it's arguable how much impact this actually had. I think the more concerning part about this is the fact that they actually took this data without people's permission. It's basically To me, it sounds like a breach or a theft of data from people on Facebook. So now in response, you got a lot of people that are leaving Facebook because, look, your data is not secure. Oh, I would argue that our data was never secure on Facebook. That's what happens when you use a giant corporation. Now, getting back to what this video found of these Cambridge Analytica employees, well, they were caught on tape talking about ways that they could entrap politicians in compromising situations. They used things like bribery and hiring Ukrainian sex workers. How oddly specific, considering, of course, some people in the Trump campaign, for example, having some alleged ties with Russia and even Ukraine and some of the billionaires. But anyway, now, the company's chief executive, Alexander Nix, said the British firm secretly campaigns in elections across the world. Now, this includes operating through a web of shadowy front companies or by using subcontractors. In one exchange, when asked about digging up material on political opponents, Mr. Nix said that they could, quote, send some girls around to the candidate's house, adding that Ukrainian girls are very beautiful. I find that works very well. Fascinating. Especially when you're talking about politicians, right? Sending some, Eastern European women over to certain politicians. Hey, do I know any politicians that happen to be into Eastern European women? Maybe. I could be the president of the United States. Anyway, in another, he said, quote, we'll offer a large amount of money to the candidate to finance his campaign in exchange for land for assistance. Or land, for instance. Sorry. We'll have the whole thing recorded. We'll blank out the face of our guy, and we'll post it on the internet. Now, that is problematic, because again, that is bribery. Offering bribes to public officials happens to be illegal under both UK and US law. Now, Cambridge Analytica is a UK company, but it also operates in the United States. Now, these emissions were filmed at a series of meetings at London hotels over 4 months, between November 2017 and November 2018. An undercover reporter for Channel 4 News posed as a fixer for a wealthy client, hoping to get candidates elected in Sri Lanka. Mr. Nix told our reporter, quote, we're used to operating through different vehicles in the shadows, and I look forward to building a very long-term and secretive relationship with you. That would be, of course, the reporter. And look, I'll have the link to the report in the description of this video if you want to watch it, which is highly recommended. Now, along with Mr. Nix, the meetings also included Mark Turnbull, the managing director of CA Political Global, and the company's chief data officer, Dr. Alex Taylor. Now, Mr. Turnbull described how, having obtained damaging material on opponents, Cambridge Analytica could discreetly push it onto social media and the internet. He said, quote, we just put information into the bloodstream of the internet and then watch it grow. Give it a little push every now and then, like a remote control. It has to happen without anyone thinking. That's propaganda. Because the moment you think that's propaganda, the next question is, who's put that out? So, now that's fascinating, right? So yes, opposition research, that's something that a lot of these companies do. And that's what Analytica is actually claiming. Like, no, what we're doing, we just did opposition research. Well, I think there should be, there might be a fine line between what they're doing, obviously bribery and things like that, and opposition research. But anyway, can you think of any sort of situation where unflattering information has been dug up and slowly released into the internet bloodstream? I could think of a couple of examples. Now, Mr. Nix also said, quote, many of our clients don't want to be seen working with a foreign company, so we often set up, if we are working, then we can set up fake IDs and websites. We could be students doing research projects attached to a university. We can be tourists. There's so many options we can look at. I have lots of experience in this. So that's important because in the case of Facebook, that's what they did. They're like, oh, no, don't worry about it. We're just doing research. We're not going to sell this to a political campaign. We're not going to do anything like that. We're just doing research. We're just doing these psychological profiles of possible American voters. Turns out, again, that's not correct. They used that situation for the Trump campaign to try and target Trump voters. And not only that, but setting up these psychological profiles, they knew what kind of buttons would push you, what kind of biases you already have. That would be very, very invaluable to any sort of political campaign. Oh, man, we know exactly what to say, what kind of ads to run to target these specific people, rile them up, and get them out to the polls. Again, that is incredibly valuable for any kind of political campaign. So, look, I don't know if all of what they did, like the general doing research and, you know, going and gathering information and selling it to a political campaign, I don't know if that part's illegal, but there's certainly some things in this. The bribery, the Ukrainian girls and things like that, that's wildly illegal. And look, even the stealing the information of people from Facebook, that definitely, I think, should run afoul of the law. Because you can't just go and steal people's information. No, if you want people's information, you have to be like Facebook and just allow people to give it to them. But look, nonetheless, it's pretty disastrous for Cambridge Analytica. This company they're in a world of trouble, not just in the U.S. obviously, but in the U.K. as well. So we're gonna see a lot of them going forward into the future because this is not gonna go away for them. Okay. Let me save the Dana Nessel story for tomorrow. Let's talk about nightmares. An incredibly wealthy billionaire jeweler has just revealed one of his greatest fears. The fears of poor people rising up. Now, speaking at the Financial Times Business of Luxury Summit in Monaco, this fashion tycoon told his fellow members of the elite that he's unable to sleep at night at the thought of what he believes to be imminent social upheaval. According to Bloomberg, Johann Rupert told the conference to bear in mind that when the poor rise up, the middle classes won't want to buy luxury goods for fear of exposing their wealth. He said he had been reading about changes in labor technology, as well as the recent Oxfam figures suggesting that the top 1% of the global population now own more wealth than the other 99%. He said, quote, "How is society going to cope with structural unemployment and the envy, hatred, and the social warfare? We are destroying the middle class at this stage, and it will affect us. It's unfair. So that's what keeps me up at night." Okay, so look, in case you're unaware, he's saying, I'm afraid that the poor people are going to rise up against us. And it's not because they care about poor people being poor, right? I didn't get that sense whatsoever from this guy. No, he said like, oh man, look, the poor people, we've been taking so much from them. And well, they're going to get really, really pissed. They're going to get really fed up, and they're going to come out with the guillotines. And look, it's going to get so bad that even middle class people, they're not going to want to buy our stuff. Wait, that's what you're concerned about? That's what you're concerned about. Middle class people, they're not going to buy our stuff. I mean, poor people don't buy our stuff because what are they going to do? I mean, they're poor. They can't buy our stuff. So, no, we're just worried about losing out on potential business when the poor people try to eventually throw off the yoke of their economic oppression. Yeah, okay, man. And look, you can tell also because he said the envy, hatred, and social warfare. Look, this isn't about envy or hatred. And the only social warfare has been from rich people trying to basically destroy every sort of social program that helps alleviate the suffering of poverty. All this, I can't think of the word now. Austerity. There it is. All the austerity that has been put into place by wealthy governments or, you know, governments and politicians that serve the wealthy. That's the problem. Look, the 99% don't have the wealth. Again, let's give the Trump tax cuts, for example. It's a great example. 83% of the benefits of that tax cut went to the rich. I mean, look, and most of the money, unfortunately, has gone to the wealthy in the past decade or 2 decades. We've had this great divergence of wealth. Look, regular people, working people, our salaries, our wages have been stagnant. $7.25 is worth less in real wages than it was than the minimum wage was back in 1960. People getting the minimum wage in 1960 actually had more buying power than poor people who make the federal minimum wage do now in America. That's insanity. That's why we need a living wage. Look, if this guy actually cared, and not just about his own skin, because look, that seems to be obviously what he cares about. Oh my God, the rich or the poor are going to rise up. They're going to try to take us rich people down. Well, no, if you actually cared about the reasons why this could happen, you'd actually want to do something about income inequality. Look, for example, he mentions automation. Well, there is one way to get by automation, and that is a universal basic income. It's going to be necessary. I mean, look, as automation continues, and believe me, business owners will continue to want to automate, and the technology will only continue to get better and more efficient. Yes, there are some jobs that you cannot automate, but for the ones you do, which are, of course, usually low skill, factory labor type of jobs, those workers got to go somewhere. You need a universal basic income, or else you're going to have a situation where there is a permanent underclass of people that are unable to work, unable to get jobs, because there's just not enough jobs for people. And that sets the stage for this guy's nightmare scenario, where a UBI that actually would actually help people, because then you're sharing the fruits of machine produced labor with society at large. Now, let me give you some background on this guy. He is estimated by Bloomberg to have a fortune of about $7.5 billion. So he is a very, very wealthy person. So, hey man, look, if anybody's going to get the axe first in this fictional or possible poor uprising, it would be someone like that. So, look, we can avoid this. There are definitely ways where, where we can actually make sure that poor people are taken care of, and they actually have opportunity to become middle class. There are ways that we can do that, but unfortunately, most of the world's wealthy, most of the world's elite are not going in that direction. They're going in the opposite direction and speeding more and more towards world oligarchy. That is something that we still have a chance of being able to stop. But we need the right kind of policies. We need the right kind of politicians. And we need to go and to fight the establishment that seems to only want to serve those wealthy interests. Okay. You know what? I think I'm going to call it a day. We'll have some great stories tomorrow. We'll have Dana Nessel. We'll talk about the Michigan Attorney General race, and then we'll go after Toys R Us. All right. So that's it. That's all I got for now. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and share. Not only that, but please consider becoming a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation. It's super important, as of course YouTube is continuing to crack down on independent creators, demonetizing videos, doing all that sort of stuff. So your support means everything at this, right now. I mean, if there's a time that we need patrons, now's the time. All right. So that said, love you guys. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. So right here, 3 p.m. Eastern, TYT Nation. All right, everybody. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.